something is up in Canada, ladies and gentlemen. It appears that Justin Trudeau is being pushed to resign by his own political party. I kid you not. That could happen sometime soon. They are very serious about this. Now, this is happening at a time where apparently his finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, has decided to resign, and this is causing a huge ruckus in Parliament. We're going to get into this story here. Top Canada minister resigns, threatening Trudeau's hold on power. Oh, Justin Trudeau. This is Chrystia Freeland here. We're going to tell you who she really is as well in a second. Some of you might remember her because I've talked about her before. But this is a doozy. I want to get into this part right about here. Ms. Freeland, who helped steer the Trudeau government through many challenges, had been playing a prominent role in forming Canada's response to the incoming Trump administration, leading a team of government officials preparing for the transition. In her letter of resignation, Ms. Freeland accused Mr. Trudeau, who is deeply unpopular at home, of engaging in costly political gimmicks instead of focusing on countering the grave threat of tariffs. So, yeah, for those who are not aware, he does not have a good approval rating at all. Canadians, she said, know when we are working for them, and they equally know when we are focused on ourselves. She said the breakdown with Mr. Trudeau had come over his push for measures, including a sales tax holiday and sending modest checks to taxpayers that would add to the government's deficit. She said she believed the spending aimed at carrying support. Did they spell carry wrong? They did spell carry wrong. Okay, whatever. Carrying support among voters would undermine Canada's finances and its ability to deal with Mr. Trump's tariff threat. Late Monday, Mr. Trump reacted on social media by deriding Ms. Freeland. The great state of Canada is stunned as the finance minister resigns or was fired. Some are alluding to she was fired from her position by Governor Justin Trudeau. He said Governor Justin Trudeau, repeating an ongoing joke in which he refers to Canada as the 51st state and Mr. Trudeau as its governor. Her behavior was totally toxic and not at all conducive to making deals which are good for the very unhappy citizens of Canada. She will not be missed, he added. The two had clashed during the renegotiation of the North American trade agreement in his first term. So, yeah, not looking good so far for Justin Trudeau. But I do want to remind you who Chrystia Freeland is, because some of you may have forgotten. It was actually the Gray Zone who pointed this out. And this was during that time. Remember when Justin Trudeau allowed a former Nazi to come and speak inside the Canadian Parliament? Everybody remember this? Okay. Along with Zelensky. It said Canada's honoring of Nazi vet exposes Ottawa's long-standing Ukraine policy. And then they had to issue this big apology or all this jazz and stuff like that. So Chrystia Freeland, let me highlight this. Canada's second most powerful official, Chrystia Freeland, is the granddaughter of one of Nazi Germany's top Ukrainian propagandists. So that's who she is. I don't know if everybody remembers this, but I just want to remind you who she is, because the media has been talking about her very favorably because they also want Justin Trudeau to resign. But just a little tidbit there, just a little FYI. Now, as I told you, there are a number of party members that have come forward and they are speaking out to the media that they want Trudeau to resign. Let's go ahead and bring that in here. You'll see a number of MPs speaking out against him. Listen to this.
The finance minister is resigning in the middle of an economic crisis, and a fifth of his Liberal caucus has lost confidence in him. Justin Trudeau has lost control, and yet he clings to power. We cannot accept this kind of chaos, division, weakness, while we're staring down the barrel of a 25% tariff from our biggest trading partner and closest ally. Now is the time. for a carbon tax election to turn the decision away from me or Mr. Trudeau or Mr. Singh or Mr. Carney and put it in the hands of the people.
Mr. Trudeau's government is over. He must acknowledge that and act accordingly.
Could you guys imagine if Democrat politicians would have said this about Joe Biden? Could you imagine if people like AOC and people like Cori Bush, like you could imagine if the squad members would have come forward publicly to the media and said, Joe Biden has to go. Joe Biden's presidency is over. Could you imagine? Like that never happens here. I feel like it never happens. But in Canada, they seem to be a little bit more brave.
I believe that the departure of is so important to lie. Minister of Finances, Vice First Minister, Prime Minister, is the end of this government. And that at the latest in the beginning of 2025, the Prime Minister should go to the General Governor and ask for the dissolution of the Parliament.
Right now, Canadians are struggling with the cost of living. I hear it everywhere I go. People cannot find a home that they can afford. They can't buy their groceries. And on top of that, we have Trump threatening tariffs at 25%, which put hundreds and thousands of Canadian jobs at risk. And instead of focusing on these issues, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are focused on themselves. They're fighting themselves instead of fighting for Canadians. And for that reason, today I'm calling on Justin Trudeau to resign. He has to go.
All right, a pretty collective, unified message from the opposition leaders, certainly, but there are even some Liberal MPs also echoing those calls for Justin Trudeau to resign.
That's right. Those are some of the opposition, but you'll hear some of the Liberals too.
Let's put it this way. Firing a Minister of Finance who has served you extremely well is not what I would call a trustworthy move.
And that's okay.
Can you resign?
Yes.
I love the way she said it. Let's put it this way. So polite.
Today was supposed to be a presentation of a plan, and now we're talking about a finance minister who has resigned. I don't see how this helps the prime minister, and I don't see a way out and how this helps us talk about Canadians while we're continuing to talk about what's happening right now.
So he needs to go. Sorry, I'd like to hear you say.
I think he needs to go, yeah.
Interesting, ladies and gentlemen. So both parties against Justin Trudeau, both parties. So you're going to see what would happen if Justin Trudeau refuses to resign. Now, there are other options that the parliament can take to still get him out of there. And I think you need to hear about that.
Trudeau's known as being a very stubborn man, and as of now, we are not getting any indications at all he's gonna step down.
Like most families, sometimes we have fights around the holidays.
If he sticks it out, then the way to get rid of him would be a vote of no confidence in the House of Commons, the Parliament. His gamble, I think, is that the one party that's keeping him in power right now, the polls show that they're also going to be stomped in the election. So it might just be that he limps through the next few months because the people keeping him in power don't want to bring him down. In Canada, party leaders are elected by special conventions of party members, and they only take place every few years. And that is the big difference between Canada and Britain and Australia, where we have seen prime ministers literally ditched overnight. Not going to happen here. It's hard to kind of overestimate the shock this caused.
Yesterday was a gong show at the bottom of a dumpster fire, wrapped up in a cluster.
Chrystia Freeland was his closest ally in cabinet. They were joined at the hip for 10 years. When Trudeau had a really tough job he needed to get done, he would give it to Freeland.
We are a country that is good at finding compromises.
So she led the negotiations on the trade negotiations with the first Trump administration.
Is there such a thing as precedented times? And if so, could we please have some of those?
This guy always reminds me of like a soap opera star or something. Like I think like I look at Justin Trudeau and I feel like he could be an actor. I don't feel like like I don't look at him and I see, oh, he's, going to be a politician or something like that. Like, he just comes across to me as someone who apparently appears very charismatic. He got there somehow and probably was used to getting his way. But he doesn't really strike me as a politician when I look at him at first sight or whatever.
With him on his first trip in November 2015 to Manila for a summit, and he was literally mobbed. I mean, previous prime ministers have been stodgy white men, to put it bluntly. And here you had this young guy who was promising sunny ways. It was Trudeau mania. So you have people very unhappy about rising prices, people very unhappy about the sheer cost of housing. And he's been in power 9 years. And regardless of how good you are, after 9 years, people kind of get a bit fed up with you.
So you're interested in what he just said there. That's pretty interesting. Similar problems that we heard here, right? The prices are too high. People are complaining about that. They're complaining about housing costs, right? We're having similar issues here as well. I didn't know about that. Someone put the comment, it said, Sabby, he was a drama teacher before politics. I didn't know, but I can see it's very fitting for him.
The opinion polls have been dreadful for the last 18 months. It's quite clear that if there were an election now, his Liberal Party would be absolutely crushed. Right now, it's just backbench Liberal legislators, and you could argue they're malcontents, they're unhappy they're not in cabinet, fine. But he has a 38-strong cabinet. If any of those people come out and say, we love you, but it's time to go, then it's hard to see how he could continue.
Tariffs will make our country rich.
Well, the stakes are that Donald Trump comes to power on January 20th, promising to impose 25% tariffs on all Canadian imports, which would be devastating because Canada is very heavily reliant on the states for its economy. The federal government under Trudeau and the premiers of the 10 provinces in Canada were supposed to unite. The provincial premiers have already come out to say, look, and two of them have used the word chaos. If the various elements of Canadian governments are all on different pages, well, it could get very ugly.
A close ally of Justin Trudeau said Tuesday that the Canadian leader is reflecting on complaints about his leadership. Members of his ruling Liberal Party are unhappy after his finance minister Chrystia Freeland abruptly stepped down days ago. Her resignation left Trudeau's government adrift less than a month before a new U.S. administration under Donald Trump could impose crippling tariffs on Canadian goods. But his new finance minister, Dominic LeBlanc, told Canada's CBC that Trudeau had held a special meeting with his parliamentary caucus and listened carefully to their concerns, and he would reflect on it. Trudeau gave a light-hearted nod to the turmoil at a Liberal Party event Tuesday night.
It's hard not to feel happy when we're like this, among Liberals, among family, because that's what we really are, a big family. Now, like most families, sometimes we have fights around the holidays.
Oh, he's good. He's good at this one. He knows how to engage the crowd, knows how to engage the audience. I can see he's been there it's been 10 years, you guys. It's been 10 years. And so here's the thing. You may be wondering, like, if he decides not to resign, what can be done? Well, they could still push him out by having a no confidence vote in Parliament, which may be that's even more embarrassing. At this point, you're better off just resigning, because I think you would have a little bit more pride if you resigned on your own accord than if you waited for Parliament to push you out by a no confidence vote. So it almost feels like he's in a similar position as President Macron. That's what it feels like at this point in time.
But of course, like most families, we find our way through it.
Freeland was a key Trudeau ally. She also served as Deputy Prime Minister and had headed a special cabinet committee on Canada-US relations. Her resignation is building up to one of the worst crises Trudeau has faced since taking power in 2015, and comes when he is on track to lose the next election to the Conservatives in late 2025. Pressure is growing on Trudeau to resign. The traditionally pro-Liberal Toronto Star, the largest circulation newspaper in Canada, ran an editorial Tuesday saying it was time for him to leave. Another Liberal parliamentarian said separately that Trudeau was delusional if he thought he could fight the next election.
So we are seeing more similarities between Canada and the US, where it appears that come 2025, conservatives are on path to win, similar to what just happened here in the US. So is everybody kind of seeing what's happening across the board here? So the people are complaining about the same issues, the housing costs. They're complaining about the grocery store prices. I mean, Canada is our neighbor to the north. It's not like it's all the way across the pond somewhere. So we're seeing some of the same issues come from the people.
To add to the party's woes, the Liberals badly lost a special election in British Columbia recently. If Trudeau does resign, it will set off a Liberal leadership race that Freeland could join. She sent an email to party volunteers on Tuesday saying this will not be the end of the road, but gave no details.
Yeah. Oh, buddy. I don't know. If you're in the chat and you live in Canada, let me know. This is really interesting. I have covered Justin Trudeau a couple of times on this show. I remember I covered him during the trucker protests, which that was also ridiculous. He wanted to freeze people's accounts for participating in the protest. Again, just insane, absurd. I obviously covered him when he brought the former Nazi to speak in Parliament. Like, he's been all over the place. And I would say, again, he's better off just resigning on his own accord than waiting to be pushed out. But it sounds like Canada is on track to have conservatives take over as well. So we are seeing a trend, folks. All the king's men are ready to come together to push out Justin Trudeau. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.